Parents of tweens, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
Welcome back to the Boundary Corner podcast, along with my partner in crime, Brian Scott Siegler.
What's up?
Curtis Wilson. Brian, how are you today, big guy?
I am good, buddy. I am good. It is a nice Thursday night here. We're recording. Got a brew in hand. Got a little bit of water rolling, too. Been a long day. Been working on schoolwork and work and everything else in between, but it's coming to an end. So how about you, buddy?
Enjoying a nice little gin and tonic here tonight. It's been a very long day, Brian, because I took PTO today.
Oh.
And, you know, as you get older, PTO becomes less and less fun. I even get asked by somebody when I asked them to back me up at work, hey, we'll be out Thursday. Are you doing something fun? Like, no, I'm really not. I am power washing and sealing my deck. Not fun.
Man.
So, yeah, all day today, between me and the wife, we were taking stuff off, power washing the deck. Oh, man, I'm tired. I got to seal it, so I got to go to Home Depot in the morning and get that stuff. Hope to goodness it dried out, especially after the rainstorms tonight. But
we lost power for a little bit, so yeah, they were pretty heavy coming through tonight, buddy.
Oh yeah, it was. You must have got the one a little later. We got the one mid-afternoon, so I had to stop right in the middle of it. And you know, it's summer though. This is what we like. Nice summer.
Yeah.
Summer.
We got both of them. We got the like the 3 o'clocker, and then like right after 5, the big one came through.
Ooh, buddy. Well, glad you got power back now. I'm assuming since we're recording.
Yeah. It was only out for about 30 minutes.
Okay, that's not bad at all. Not bad at all. So yeah, folks, we're just doing dad life stuff, working, dealing with power outages, putting kids to bed, all sorts of fun stuff here. But today, what we're going to be taking a look at is we are going behind enemy lines. What does that mean? We're taking a look at the 4 ACC opponents that we are playing on the road this year.
Road matchups in the conference, fellas.
Ooh, buddy, and let me tell you, it's some very interesting and intriguing matchups. Probably many of you know who we're playing, but we're going to get into some details and some things we're seeing and how we feel about them. But before we get into all that, we do have quite a list of some few things to hit. And Brian, I'm gonna throw the first big one at you, man. 6'4", 225 out of St. Peter's Prep in Jersey City, New Jersey. Quarterback Taj Bullock commits. How you feeling about it?
That definitely takes a big sting out of the DD decommitment. I like this kid. I watched his film. He's got kind of similar to Hendon Hooker's style, especially both size and what he is able to do as a prospect coming out of high school. So especially through his junior year, at least at this point. But he's got a pretty live arm. He's athletic. He can run around. He's good at making throws on the run. Needs to clean up his mechanics a little bit, and I think that's going to be the big thing. But look at our quarterback room. He's got some time to do that. So there's nothing really negative about this pickup.
No, not at all. And to your point, like you hit me up and you talked about all the stuff you like, but you mentioned the mechanics. Then when you kind of had this conversation, well, you got Hendon this year and next year. You still got Quincy. He'd still have some eligibility left. So really, I mean, 2023 is the earliest the guy could be on the field. So he's got potentially multiple years in Blacksburg to clean those mechanics up. So yeah, I love the size because, you can talk about mechanics and some of the stuff he does good, but dude, to be a high school junior and you're 6'4" and you're 225, they don't make many of those. You can look at Demetrius Davis and he is an unbelievable talent. Demetrius is 5'11", about 195 pounds. He's what you're typically seeing in any high school level.
Yeah.
But this kid is kind of like, whoa, he could walk in through a group of grown men and you'd be like, was he like 30? Oh my gosh. The other thing, that I cannot think of the league. It's been mentioned. One of the big boys up in New Jersey as a junior led that team to the state title.
Yeah, that's a big thing because everyone was talking about, Demetrius Davis having that winning pedigree. So it's nice kind of, if we're going to have to fill in that void that was created by him decommitting, it's nice to have another guy that has that proven level of playing not only big-time high school football, but being able to win a state championship doing it.
Absolutely, man. And I really like to pick up, too. It helps, helps kind of quarterback now is set. We've got it locked in. We can go put the resources elsewhere. And we did put the resources elsewhere. Brian, VA to VT, Kalai Lawson, out of the Valley, Stephen City, the 6'4", 205 athlete. Tell me what you saw on him. I know some of his tape's a little old because he was injured last year, but what do you see from this, again, 6'4", 205 pounds, and he's a junior?
Yeah, let's read it out here. We're talking about from just a raw perspective, he's got the similar type of traits and build that Tremaine Edmonds had.
Oh, don't say that, man.
We're talking about, I'm not saying that we're going to get to that level, but in terms of build and in terms of athletic traits, he could get there. And I mean, right now his ranking on 247 and in general is lower, as you stated, because of that those injuries that they've been dealing with. This guy's probably going to see his stock climb a lot this year, especially if he puts out a really productive year. So look for that to work in our favor, because right now some of these rankings are pulling our, particularly Lawson's and Melitik, the kid from Germany. Those two rankings are pulling down our class average a little bit, but I think his is going to go up a good amount. I don't think we're going to see any change much in the on the German kids ranking, but look for him to climb a little bit, and that's going to help our overall ranking. So this kid's got really good measurables, and just watching him play, he's an athlete to be as big as he is.
I'll say this, man, and I'm glad you mentioned it, because a lot of people have mentioned him on edge because of that 6'4", because of that frame. But I'm with you. I see a kid, I think he played the 3 in basketball. He done some track and field, like the long jump, I believe. Like this guy, and you talk about looking at Tremaine. I think Tremaine was 6'4", I think 220 coming out. So slightly bigger, already had the pounds on him. But the frame's there, and you see some of his workouts. I'm with you. I think me and you're on the same page. Don't put him on the edge. Let him play linebacker, because that's where you're going to get your most bang for your buck. You've already got some guys at defensive end coming in, some young guys. Make this the next Tremaine. Make this your next first-round talent at linebacker. So Brian, we've got one from the RVA, right?
Yes.
And we got one from over in the valley, down in the mountains, over in Stephen City, right?
There we go.
We got one way up in Northern Virginia, right?
Right.
So we take a drive down 95 from Mr. Stroman's house, and we pull up into North Stafford, football power there. And we get another one, cornerback Sean Asbury II out of North Stafford. Hey, kind of similar to Lawson, got injured last year during the season, and that ranking, it's kind of hurting us. But you look at some of his tape, I know you did, Brian, he ain't an 84.
No, this guy's going to be someone that I think can come in, and he's going to kind of be the natural successor, I think, maybe to Chamari Connor. He's going to be that whip nickel type player, but in a pinch, he can play outside. So I think that's the big thing to look with this guy. And again, we're talking about trends. We're talking about these versatile players. You know, we look at Lawson. That's a guy that I think is going to project as a backer, but could put his hand in the dirt. Asbury, a guy that can play the nickel, but also probably in a pinch slip outside. So when you're looking at the depth that we're trying to build here, we're looking at those versatile players. So I really like what we're doing here. And Asbury, I think, as we've said, is going to be a guy that's going to see his rankings go up as he gets a productive senior year in there, hopefully.
Absolutely. I know you mentioned nickel. I think he's played safety, kind of letting his athleticism and letting his ball hawking nature take advantage of in the high school level, which is awesome to see. But I'm really hoping they move him outside because right now we don't have one of those guys. Sort of the depth's a little bit shaky there.
The DJ Johnson debacle didn't help that.
Yeah, it didn't. We're not even going to mention that just because there would be even more cursing than normal on this program. Hold on, Brian. I'm taking a sip because that angered me so much. But I'd like to see Asbury be worked on the outside, and then you hear some of the stuff about Ham really grilling him and him knocking the video breakdowns out of the ballpark, and I love it. But Brian, as our buddy Jason Long song says, I almost gave up drinking. 3 commits in like 10 days. It's like we are on fire. And lo and behold, Wednesday happened. And he is not our 247 highest rated guy, but our composite highest rated guy. A guy me and you both kind of in love with, 6'3", 315, Tyus out of Arkansas, decommits. You told me Brian tried to soften the blow. Brian, you said it even after DD decommitted. He's like, I don't like Tyus Martin. He's like, I feel like he sort of got his hand on the door. You told me that.
Yeah. So when DD decommitted, I was like, I think we're looking at Neville probably having one foot out the door, and Tyus Martin probably has his hand on the doorknob. If we're going to use some metaphors here, so that was kind of what I saw. Ultimately, both of them left. I was hoping that the combination of TNT, would be enough to keep Barden in the boat, whereas Neville didn't have, I think that similar type of relationship with the staff that Martin may had, even though both of those guys haven't had any sort of official visit at Virginia Tech yet.
Yeah.
But it took a turn, and it's disappointing because we're looking at situations where the writing is on the wall, but at the same time, these guys got in for a reason. We need to be better about keeping them committed despite some of the things that are going on outside that we can't control.
Yeah. It's 100% true, man. I think the staff, now that this happened multiple times, again, if you're recruiting for one guy, he's going to be your linchpin. You can't recruit like that. I think hopefully what happens is we see some self-reflection on this. Now,
don't hype up hashtags.
There you go. Don't hype up hashtags. Figure out what the kid really wants to commit to. Sometimes the hype gets going. They're 17-year-old, 18-year-old kids. Hype can happen. They can commit, and then 2-3 months later, yeah. So, yeah. Brian, this isn't on our rundown, but I'm sure you saw it. Although Tyus decommitted, Tyleek Williams in his top 6. I like the way we look on that because that's another big guy with some real good skill. And, again, like Tyus, Tyleek would probably come in day one and start playing. So
it's true though. We just got a crystal ball thrown in there on Tyleek. So that's trending in our direction. Obviously, sometimes crystal balls you can take them for what they're worth if it's not close to a kid, committing. So it's definitely taken with a grain of salt. But it wasn't someone that is the Hokie insider. So that definitely gives a little more credence than what a typical crystal ball ranking would give there. So we shall see. But I feel like we're at least in good position. A lot of it's going to depend on how serious some of the bigger dogs in this race that are in that top 6 are about getting him to take, and obviously the relationship that he has with the coaching staff overall, and Tap and Tierlink in particular.
100%, man. 100% on that. All right. Hey, Brian, sports are finally coming back, brother. NASCAR has been going. We've got some good golf tournaments. Baseball's finally agreed. Let's not do
Baseball
that.
figured something out. I swear, man. And that was such a frustrating thing to watch and follow, man.
Oh, it's so much was. It was such a pain in the ass because it's nothing. It's posturing, and whose side do you want to fall on? Let's just not get into that. But it's coming back, and about the time it comes back in about a month from now, the NBA will start starting up. The NHL will be starting back up. Oh, buddy, go ahead.
It'll be a week or two into camp. College football camps will be getting kicked off, the 2-week pre-camp.
So here's what I'm going to say, Brian. All you guys who are married, have girlfriends that listen to us. Honey-do lists, anything, get them done in the next 4 weeks. Because when this thing starts up, it's going to be a rocket ship, and it's going to be insane. So honey-do list, get your deck finished. All these things that your wife wants you to do them now. Or you're going to be the guy when it's like NBA playoff. Ooh, Saturday, NBA playoff at 3:30. Some awesome golf tournament with Tiger and Phil on. Holy crap, wait a second. The NHL playoffs are on. Oh, my God, and then my favorite baseball team's playing. What am I supposed to do? You're going to be stuck in the yard if you don't get that stuff done now.
Yep. A lot of this stuff is coming through. You need to get it done by the end of July. My anniversary is July 24th, so get it done by my anniversary.
Brian's going to sacrifice on the sword for those first opening days. My anniversary is not far behind yours in early part of August, and the weekend of our anniversary, we actually have a wedding to go to for my niece. So it's kind of all work out, but if you don't have stuff like that on the horizon, get your stuff done now. All right, Brian. Let's put on some camo, get on some black face paint.
Uh-oh.
Mark it up like we're getting into the woods here because we are going behind enemy lines today. And
getting dropped off into the shit.
Touche, my friend. But we're ready to go. And Brian, let's me and you get in the car. Let's get down 95. Let's drive about 2.5 hours. Let's get on 40, kick a little bit east as we get to Durham. And let's start in Chapel Hill with the University of North Carolina Tar Heels. And, Brian, I take a look. They're returning some folks, man. 17 total starters returning, 10 on offense, 7 on defense. And they didn't lose that much, but I know there's a couple guys you saw that you kind of want to hit on about who they lost.
Yeah, so the big one on offense, you mentioned the 10 returning starters. The one that's not is a big one, and that's Charlie Heck. Offensive tackle, got drafted by Houston. He's going to be the one to watch because he's the guy that was, the primary protector for Sam Howell on those passing downs. And with this type of offense, it slings the ball around a lot. That's going to be something to watch and see if they're able to do something, to plug in that spot for 2020. So that's going to be the big one on offense. We got a couple on defense I want to highlight.
All right.
Jason Strowbridge, the defensive tackle, was drafted by the Dolphins. He was third team all ACC in 2019. Going to be hard to replace that production. He had 45 tackles and 4 sacks. And then we also had Miles Dorn at safety, the all ACC honorable mention, and he had 83 tackles in 2019, which was third on the team. So those are the big 3 key departures that that UNC is going to need to replace. The biggest one being Charlie Heck, being the only departing guy on offense, but at a very key position.
Yeah, that's big because you're talking about protecting Hal's blind side. That was his first year. And I tell you, you have somebody out there that's getting NFL looks and gets drafted in the NFL. As a quarterback, you don't think about getting smashed from the blind side. But here's the piece I say, Brian. That defense wasn't that good. And from what you're giving us here is they're kind of losing 2 leaders. And you can say all you want, yeah, but, talent. Leadership's still very important on the defensive side of the ball. They weren't that good last year. losing two guys. One gets drafted, one an honorable mention ACC. I'm very interested to see if they will rebound. But Brian, I'll say this, man. They've got some talent. We take a look at the 247 recruiting class rankings. 2017, they were 29th. 2018, they were 20th. 2019, they were 30th. So there is some talent still there. Still on the roster. And who's your key? Who are your key guys? I know one's going to be the obvious, couple's going to be obvious, but who's kind of some guys that you feel if North Carolina's going to extend from they were 7-6, they weren't 8, 9, 10 win team. They were a 7-6 team, and literally every game came down to the razor thin margin.
Yeah, and that's what we're looking at, and I think it's going to start with, can they carry that offensive momentum that they had in 2019 over into 2020? And that's going to start with Sam Howell.
Yeah.
Freshman All-American quarterback, ACC Rookie of the Year, third team All-ACC. Stats out the roof for a freshman, 3,641 yards and 38 touchdowns. Can he take the next step, whatever that looks like, compared to those numbers, and be more consistent? So I think the consistency is going to be the thing, because he had a couple games where in crunch time, he wasn't always the same player that he was, throughout the game. So I think, we saw that, even in our game, once Hooker went down and QP was in there, that was a game that probably could have went the other way very easily, and we were able to fight that one off and win it.
It should have went the other way, because not only did HH go down, Willis made the huge screw up, and Farley was down in the second half of that game. So they couldn't beat us without starting quarterback and one of the highest graded corners in the country. Very interesting on that. But Brian, I'm going to go with something you said here. I mean, it's almost like a fantasy football. I'm looking at his stats here. Regression has to happen to say. I mean, if he goes above 38 touchdowns, 3,600 yards this year, he's not playing for them after next season. He will be in the NFL. There won't even be a question. But he's definitely got some good targets. So,
yeah, he got some good targets. So the big one obviously is going to be De'Ami Brown. He was third team All ACC. He led the team in touchdowns at the wide receiver position with 12, and he was over 1,000 yards receiving. So that's the big one. The other one that we know a lot more about, unfortunately, is Daz Newsome. 757 product, heavily recruited by the Hokies, but he's down there in Chapel Hill. He was second team All ACC, a little bit lower on the touchdown and yards ranking than Brown. He had 1,018 and 10 touchdowns, but that kid's a playmaker. He makes plays all over the field, and that's a dynamic 1-2 punch, as you're going to see in the ACC.
Absolutely, and we know the Daz Newsome thing. 757. Dad went to Tech. I can't remember if Deion's brother or cousin. The lineage was there. This is our guy. We miss on him. De'Ami Brown, same way, out of Charlotte. He was a 4-star coming out, and literally when it came down to decision time, it was between us and Carolina, and he went to Carolina. So, you look at Brown, you talk about those 12 touchdowns. The guy's a 6'2" guy. He's a big-bodied guy, so makes a lot of sense. What about on the other side of the ball, Brian?
So the big one on the other side of the ball we're going to talk about is Chaz Surratt, linebacker. Last season, he was first team All ACC and runner-up ACC Defensive Player of the Year. Before spring of last year, he was a quarterback.
Yes, he was.
So talk about going from being a quarterback on the depth chart to being ACC runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year in less than a calendar year is a pretty impressive feat there.
True.
He was second in the ACC in tackles with 115. So, this guy can make plays all over the field. He's dynamic. Probably other than Rook is the only other linebacker that I would say, is going to give him a run in terms of total tackles this year. So, look for him to make some noise on that defense and be that leader that's going to step up with some of the departing leaders that are now either in the NFL or lost to graduation.
Yeah, you give that kid all the credit in the world. Was actually a pretty good rated quarterback coming out, and he makes that switch, and he essentially steps, not only into a solid role, but excels at it. Shows you he's a football player, not just a specific quarterback, wide receiver, whatever you want to say. And again, he's ACC co-defensive player of the year last year, defensive player of the year, and they still were terrible on defense.
Yeah.
And again, he's a linebacker. All right. You mentioned the guy that's getting drafted just before. Is he going to be able to excel without somebody up front making that kind of havoc, like Strobridge did? A lot of people are very bullish on North Carolina right now, Brian. I'm not. I'm bearish because they had all the elements last year because it was similar to Louisville, who we'll discuss later. They were a bad team. They quit on their coach. It doesn't take much if a guy can come in and motivate good players to have a turnaround. It really doesn't. But how about this, Brian? I'm talking bearish. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Who's some guys that maybe have been behind the curtain that have to emerge if they're going to improve upon their 7-6 record?
So if we're talking about some of the reason why people are jumping on this UNC bandwagon, part of it's got to do with their 20 class and what they've already done so far in the 21 class. But with the 20 class, we're talking about the number one ranked defensive player, Desmond Evans, North Carolina product. They're looking for him to have an instant impact year one. He's going to be a guy that's up front, that's going to be able to make some plays for them. So that's going to be step one for them. If he can come in and be an instant impact player, that's going to shore up some of the problems they have along their defensive front. Talking about some other guys, let's look at Cameron Kelly, who we also know a little bit about.
Oh, yes, Cameron Kelly. Let's see, committed to Tech, decommitted, recommits to Auburn, leaves Auburn after the spring to recommit to North Carolina.
Yeah, it's a fun time, huh? But he did play in 5 games last year. Had gotten to the point where he was in the starting role before he went down with an injury, so he's going to look to step into a key role at safety for them in 2020. And then we've got good old Storm, which is either the best or the worst cornerback name in history. He came on late in the season. He posted 9 starts last year at cornerback. Started a couple games at safety, I think, but finished off at cornerback. He's looking to lock down that position this year. That's going to be important for them to stop the passing game. Like I said, I think they're set in the linebacker position, but they've got some question marks in the secondary, and they got some question marks up front whether they can, replace Strobridge's production at defensive tackle and whether Desmond Evans can come in and be an instant impact player.
Yeah, Storm Duck's going to me, be a real key. And not only because he's a cornerback, but more or less it's, can Dre Bly teach corners how to play the game of football? You can give him his first year and say, hey, we're going to give him a pass because for the simple fact, this was his first year ever coaching. We get it. That's not too crazy. The other kid, you're going from high school to college first year. He's got a good build, 6'6", 245. I've been trying to research it here. I'm not sure what Lee County is as far as play goes. I.e., was this like a 2A or a 1A school where he was the biggest kid out there and he's going to look dominant because he should? That's something very interesting I'd like to know. We should probably dial in Robbie Compton right now. He'd probably be able to tell us in 3 seconds what Lee County is. Is it essentially in one of those higher leagues where it's like, oh, you're playing studs there? Nah, it's like 2A. If he ain't dominating at that level, then there's a lot of problems. So there we go. All right, Brian, do you want to get back in the car?
Let's get back in the car, man. Where we headed?
Let's get on 40. Let's head 8 miles up the road. Let's head down to Duke. The Blue Devils.
Man, that was a tough game to watch last year.
I don't even. God, hold on. Wait a second.
You got to take another sip.
Yeah, I did. Oh, gosh. Well, with Duke, also returning 17 starters, 8 on offense, 9 on defense. So with some experience coming back, as much as I hate he put it on us last year, love Cut. Cut knows how to coach. But Brian, they've lost a few starters. Where's who's some of the key guys they lost that might slow them down from getting back into a bowl this year?
So, I mean, if you watch Duke ever, you know that, they're sound all around, but they generally have a pretty good front seven on defense, and that's what they're losing a couple key components of here. Defensive tackle Edgar Serenord, he was probably their best interior player last year. They've lost him. Also, Trey Hornbuckle, defensive end, had 34 tackles and 4 sacks last year. They rotate a lot of guys, so a lot of guys get some time on that defensive line, but he was kind of the big playmaker in terms of getting a lot of snaps, but also making some plays. And Kobe Kwanzaa, who's the linebacker, he was the emotional leader on the field for them. That's definitely a big presence that's going to be missed for them. He was all ACC third team, 105 tackles, including 13 against us in that god-awful game we played against them.
Yeah.
And he was also 4th in the ACC for tackles per game. So he's a playmaker. He's a guy that can get out there and get it done. And they're going to definitely miss him this year.
Yeah, and Duke's defense was pretty good last year, especially up on that front seven, as you mentioned. It's something they're always good at. Again, David Cutcliffe, man, what can you say about the guy? But it's Duke. The expectations are low. They kind of can sneak up on you. And Brian, the recruiting, it's never been out of this world. I mean, the 2017 class was 47, 2018 63, 2019 49. But he tries to find football players. He tries to find fits. But who's coming back? Who could make I think they're 4-7 or 4-8, no, 4-7. Who can put them to 6-7 wins and get them back into a bowl? Who are you feeling is some of their key returning starters?
So returning guys, I mean, they don't really have a whole lot of what you would call big name guys, but the guys I want to focus on, we've got in particular Chris Rumpf II, junior defensive end. He's getting a lot of Pro Football Focus buzz based on how he graded out across the board last year. He had 6.5 sacks, even though he wasn't what you would call a starting defensive end for the Blue Devils. But he was a guy that was very much a specialist when it came to pass rushing. But he was well enough all around where when he graded out very high. Only started one game, so we'll see if he can be the guy that can impact every down and not just those specialty type situations that he played a lot last year. Other guy I want to look at is Noah Gray. So he's a tight end. He was a team leader both on and off the field for them last year. Caught 51 balls, had 3 touchdowns. I'm going to say it again. 2 of them were against Virginia Tech. So it seemed like all the key players on the Duke squad had their best game against us last year. So, it is what it is at this point. But so Noah Gray is another guy to look at to maybe take another step forward, come into a key role in that offense as they look to replace some key components, despite returning a decent amount on that side of the ball. And then we're also looking at Deion Jackson. He's running back. He's going to be the key running back to watch for them this year. He had 141 yards and 6 touchdowns in 2019, so he's going to look to improve upon that and become more of a consistent playmaker for them. But they probably will employ some level of platoon system at running back like most teams are doing now. But he's going to be the RB1A at least.
I got you. Offensively, you kind of don't worry about Cutcliffe because Cutcliffe will find wrinkles every year, little different things to do. I can remember watching the Alabama game last year with Quentin Harris. In that first quarter, he comes out looking like Georgia Tech, and for a quarter and a half, he had Alabama completely befuddled. Eventually Talon wins. But I talked about it a few minutes ago. They're never going to have the highest rankings. Chris Rump is one of those guys, man. I mean, he was a 3-star, an 82 grade coming out of Florida, and now he's probably on the verge of getting drafted next year. And it's just one of those things. It's like, how does this happen? It's like David Cutcliffe knows football. Now, Brian, you mentioned Noah Gray. You mentioned Deion Jackson. One of the big stories this year for Duke that kind of didn't make it to a national level, but for college football fans like ourselves, definitely made it. Cut went down to Clemson, and he found him something.
Yeah, so, some of those other key departures we talked about earlier, the big one is obviously Quentin Harris, starting quarterback last year. So they said, we need to find something here. So what they do, they got Chase Bryce. So he was backing up Trevor Lawrence. Looks like a guy that's definitely capable of stepping in and being the day one starter for them. Obviously, he's going to have some competition from the other guys on the depth chart there, but looks to step in and make his name known right away. Not a whole lot of stats on him other than garbage time, but the one key game he did play in was he led a comeback against Syracuse in 2018 when Lawrence went down with the wrist injury, and that was right after Brian had put his name out there to transfer. So it was a pretty big situation there that this guy, pretty relative unknown, stepped in and got them a win in conference play there. So
Absolutely.
definitely able to get the job done.
And this is something just kind of a little off topic, Brian, but when Chase Bryce came out, he was like an 88, 89 type rated guy. So right on the verge of being that 4-star, a top 20 quarterback. And he commits to Clemson, who had already had, at that point in time, the number 2 rated quarterback. So it's one of those things, we talk about recruiting sometimes. It's like, dude, why are you going there? And then the next year they get Trevor, and the guy spends time on the bench. Thankfully for him, there's transfer portals and there's ways to get out where you can show your talent. So I'm very interested to see Chase Bryce. But Brian, Duke wasn't great offensively last year. They put it on us, but they weren't the typical Cutcliffe thing. But they might have some other guys helping out. Who do you see helping potentially out on that offense?
So the big one's going to be Jalon Calhoun. He had a good true freshman campaign at wide receiver in 2019. Was kind of a guy that started to come on late as the season went on, despite them having problems with being competitive in the ACC play, other than when they played us. But he's going to be looked on as the key wide receiver for them in 2020 to step up, especially with breaking in a new starting quarterback. And in that same vein, we're looking at a guy like Jacob Monk, who's going to be the key on that offensive line for them. He's going to be the linchpin to kind of hold everything together, and is going to have to be counted on big time this season. Again, we're breaking in a new starting quarterback. Got to protect the franchise, as it were. So he's going to be leaned on heavily.
Nice. All right. Duke did have some coaching changes in the offseason. The offensive line coach, Jim Bridge, he resigned his position, and it's taken over by Greg Fry. Fry's actually coming up from Florida, where he was an offensive analyst in 2019. His last coaching role was in 2018 at FSU as the O-line coach, run game coordinator. We've discussed it before. FSU's had some offensive line struggles. But you go back to 2017, he was at Michigan, where he was their tackle and tight end coach, also their run game coordinator. Now, one of the key losses, and it's very interesting when you see a guy get this sort of promotion, Derek Jones was the defensive back coach for Duke last year. He went to Texas Tech. He's now a co-defensive coordinator. He's been replaced by Chris Hampton, who comes from Tulane. This is his first Power 5 coaching gig. Hampton did play collegiately at South Carolina. And, Brian, I'm going to round back up because we missed UNC. Let's go back to Chapel Hill for just a second. They only made one big change. Scott Boone was let go as a special teams coordinator, and Javon DeWitt replaced him. DeWitt comes over from Nebraska. He's also going to be the outside linebackers coach. He also was with Frost during the undefeated season at UCF. Pretty good special teams coach coming over, so a good pickup by Mac Brown and them. So both teams making coaching changes. What do you feel about the coaching changes down on Tobacco Road?
So I think the special teams is going to be key because I think if UNC can shore up some of the things they do on special teams to go with their offensive improvement and what I'm sure they hope is going to be at least a step up on defensive production, that could be scary. I'm not quite as bearish as you are, but I'm not in the full on Tar Heel hype train that the majority of the college football writers are at right now. So I'm somewhere in the middle, classic me right there in the middle. But I think they're going to be a good team, but I think we're right there. And I think, maybe a team like Pitt's going to be right there, who we're going to talk about here in a second. In terms of Duke, I'm not sure what type of impact that's going to be. Obviously having a guy stepping into a Power 5 gig for a first time is going to be something that could be something to keep an eye on. So I think that's definitely going to potentially be a step down at that position, but we'll keep our eyes open and see what that looks like.
Yeah, that's a big key, the first Power 5. But I always find it interesting, though, when you lose a guy and the next thing you know, he is titled as a co-something, whether co-offense or defense, because it says, okay, if this guy did well enough to get in that type of position, what was he doing schematically or game plan-wise with the old defensive coordinator? Because when you see a guy do that hasn't been a coordinator before, it usually says they put some responsibilities on him with his old team where he was well enough and first enough to walk into another Power 5 program and now get a title, which obviously is going to bring more responsibility, more money. All right, Brian, let's get back in the car, man. Let's head up 95. Let's get up to D.C. Let's hang a left on the Pennsylvania Turnpike and head to Pitt. So the wonderful Pitt Panthers returning 17 starters, 9 on offense, 8 on defense. Couple guys, man, kind of didn't go the way of the NFL draft as people thought. So some very luck there, but they did lose a few key guys.
Yeah, so there's two big ones that I want to point out. The biggest one being Dane Jackson, their cornerback that was drafted in the 7th round by the Bills. He was all ACC second team last year, so that's going to be a big blow for them in the secondary. And then on the other side of the ball, their key wide receiver, Maurice French, 850 yards and 4 touchdowns in 2019, despite missing 2 games, one of them against Virginia Tech. He ended up getting picked up as an undrafted free agent by the Chiefs. So those are 2 big-time contributors, one on each side of the ball that they're going to be missing out on next year.
Yeah, anytime you lose a corner who gets drafted, you know that there was some potential chances are during weeks where it was like, we don't have to worry about that side of the field. So that's definitely a big loss, but they bring a lot back on defense. They also, again, it's Pitt. They're not the biggest. They're not getting top 15, top 20 classes, but again, it's Narduzzi, much like Cutcliffe. He finds fits, he makes it happen. 2017, 37th ranked class, 2018, the 48th ranked class, the 2019, the 59th ranked class. So it has been going down, but Brian, they returned some talent, man.
Yeah, big time talent, especially a couple guys here. I'll start with the big one, which is Jalen Twyman. What can you really say about this guy? 41 tackles and 10.5 sacks as an interior defensive lineman in 2019. second team All-American and first team All-ACC. Complete stud in that interior defensive line, and looking to make an additional jump on those numbers coming into 2020. So that's going to be the big one. And right next to him there is going to be Patrick Jones II with 43 tackles and 8.5 sacks last year at the defensive end spot. He was second team All-ACC, making plays all over the field, good off the edge. So those are the big two in terms of getting pressure on the quarterback, and that was really their hallmark, their calling card last year, was getting at the quarterback. And that they were helped out a little bit by safety Paris Ford, who's coming back as well. First team All-ACC, and looking to improve on that impressive 2019 campaign as well. So those are the big three on defense to keep your eye out for in 2020.
Absolutely. You look at Twyman and Paris Ford. I think Narduzzi's very lucky that those guys came back. Twyman's ready to play at an NFL level. Watching him, he was one of those guys, man, you kind of watched that Pitt game. You kind of saw him, and you just kind of said, man, that guy's a beast. And Paris Ford has been the truth since he was recruited. 4-star, one of the best players in his recruiting class back in 2017. Paris Ford, believe it or not, Paris Ford was a top 100 player. Stayed home, and same way. He's a guy that you're very kind of shocked that came back for one additional year. But Brian, you've mentioned a lot on defense, but I mean, is it any question who, if he's the key?
I mean, if Pitt's going to do anything in 2020, it's going to be that Kenny Pickett takes another step forward as a quarterback. They're looking to probably get to the 9-win range if they're trying to win a coastal championship and go play probably Clemson in the ACC championship. So if they're going to make any sort of run at that, it's going to be because a guy like Kenny Pickett at quarterback is going to take another step forward and be more consistent getting the ball to his playmakers. I mean, we saw in the Virginia Tech game, he struggled sometimes getting accurate throws when he had pressure coming at him. And I think if he can get some improvement in that area, they might make some noise in the Coastal. And if they don't, they're just going to be a team with a really good defense that can't score points.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the Tech game. Again, me and you got to go to last year. Coming to that game, they were one of the hottest teams in the ACC. They had won 6 of 7. The only loss was a 4-point loss to Miami. And then the last 2 games, we goose egg them, and then they lose to BC at home by a touchdown, which just kind of put a huge damper on them, because when they walked into that DT game, they were one of those teams, if they could beat us, they potentially could make the ACC championship. They didn't. In those last few games, man, Pickett was terrible at Virginia Tech. He was awful. He had the strip sack fumble very early in the game. Rook strips him. Big Crawford snatches it up, runs it in. And then, you take a look at the Pitt game. I mean, 30 of 40 for 300 yards, 1 pick, sacked 4 times. I mean, the question is, during that 6 of 7 win streak, did Kenny Pickett did he hit the ceiling? And if he hit a ceiling, is 7 or 8 their max? And if he has some of those bad games like he did against Tech, could they come back to earth? Now, Brian, I have a feeling when I ask you who's going to emerge, I don't think it's going to be anybody on defense, is it?
No, I mean, primarily we're looking at guys on offense need to take a step forward. I think defense, the guys they have coming in aren't necessarily better than their losses, but they're solid, and they've already got a lot of talent returning already. But we're looking at guys that need to step up and take a step forward for them in 2019. That's all on the offensive side of the ball, and it's going to start with Shockey's Jacques Louis, their wide receiver. He's going to step into a key role this year after starting 6 games last year. Had right at 350 yards and 2 touchdowns in 2019, so he's going to need to improve upon those numbers, probably at least get into the 750, 800 yard range as one of their primary targets if they're going to take another step forward. When we talk about some other targets that Kenny Pickett's going to have, we need to look at a guy, Lucas Krull. He's a graduate transfer out of Florida, who saw some time for the Gators in 18 and 19. So he's going to look to have probably some instant impact on that Pitt offense after their shaky finish to close out the year. But it'll be another target for Kenny Pickett there. And I've seen the field some in Pitt, but have seen some Power 5 snaps there. So look for him. And finally, it's going to be Vincent Davis, who was the running back, true freshman last year. Showed that was very impressive in some spots in 2019. He had 314 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns, so he was able to find the end zone pretty well. So they're looking for him to take a step in the offseason and help them out, because if you look at what Pitt was doing on offense last year, they just could not run the football. They could not run the football, so he's going to need to be the guy that's going to step up and make some of those big plays in the running game, so take a little bit of pressure off of Kenny Pickett and what they're trying to do passing the ball.
Yeah, you're 100% right about that, but there's one thing I worry about Vincent Davis, man. He's 5'8", he's 175 pounds. And you feel like the touchdowns are good. He has some different parts of the game that can help out. But is he going to be the guy? And at 5'8", 175, can he be the guy? Or is it going to be those rotational things, which, in today's era of college football, it does happen. But if you take one of your best players off the field because you can't give him that pounding, it definitely hurts. Brian, believe it or not, Pitt made no coaching changes. None.
Shocking.
But let me ask,
Narduzzi is holding what he has, huh?
He is, but I'm going to ask you this. He's only had one losing season since he's been at Pitt, but no seasons with more than 8 wins. If he has a bad season, could he be on the hot seat?
I think so. I think he's definitely going to be put on the hot seat if he doesn't come out and win. I think he almost has to win the Coastal this year to not have some level of fire under his ass going into the next offseason. But at the same time, if he doesn't get to that 9-win threshold, whether they go play for the Coastal or not, I think it's going to be still something that they're going to look at, because I know that Pitt's never been, at least in recent history, a team that's going to go out and shatter the earth. But at some points you have to get a little tired of mediocrity, and I think they're stuck in mediocrity. I think we've been a little bit above that, just not the last 2 seasons necessarily, but yeah. We've been a step above that, and I'm hoping that we take another step back into that same direction this year. But Pitt's definitely been in that good but never great category for a long time, and especially under Narduzzi's direction.
Yeah, it's absolutely about Virginia Tech. The first 2 seasons under Justin Fuente, 10-9 wins. We were well above. We had the rebuild at 6, then we had the 8 last year. But as many of us who have a few cocktails and then start looking, we say, we could have won 10 games last year. Why did we screw the pooch a few times? So, but let's move on, Brian. Let's go get some bourbon. You want to go get some bourbon over in Louisville?
Let's do that, man. Let's do it.
All right. So Louisville, last year, hell of a rebound year by Scott Satterfield in his first season. But he lost some guys. Of all the teams we discussed today, they are returning the least amount of starters. They are returning 15 starters, 7 on offense, 8 on defense. And Brian, if I drove to your house over Mechanicsville and we kicked down, heading down to the East End over to Highland Springs, there is a big, big loss.
Yeah, big-time loss. Big-time loss. We got Mekhi Becton, Highland Springs Springer out of the 804, drafted 11th overall in the first round to the Jets. That's a big-time factor for them. Now, it's probably the right decision for him, obviously, after getting drafted 11th. But he was a junior, so that was a potentially unexpected departure for them. On top of losing their senior tackle, Tyler Haycraft. So they're losing both tackles, and one of them being what you would call an all-world type tackle. So that's going to be big-time blow for them on offense. Now, when we talk about defense and who they lost, the biggest name is going to be Kane Pass. He was a safety, and he had the second most tackles on the team, second most solo tackles on the team, and third most tackles total. And he got a good look by some NFL scouts as well in terms of the undrafted free agent market. That's a big loss in the secondary. Some of the other guys that they lost, some of them were kind of portal guys, and some of them were guys from the old regime that decided, moving on. But in terms of the key contributors to that 2019 turnaround, those are the big three there, the two tackles and the safety.
Yeah, obviously, you talk about losing two bookend tackles. One who is obviously, you said it, all-world elite. He's an NFL player now, drafted in the first round. The other on the right side, I mentioned this the other day. I wish we played them earlier in the season because, as you know from playing offensive line, one of the toughest things to do is get a new line to gel, especially when you're replacing bookends. Now, Brian, they actually had some talent. McCall was part of the 2017 class, which was 34th ranked, 2018 30th ranked, 2019 they were 69th ranked. But after the freaking dumpster fire Bobby Petrino set on fire there, it's a miracle Satterfield pulled 69 off for that recruiting class.
That was impressive.
Very impressive. But they clearly have some talent coming back. We're not dipping below that 5 on each side of the ball. So who do you feel has got to be some of those guys to potentially, for them, they did win more games than UNC last year, to potentially get them a little higher up and maybe give Clemson a fight?
So the biggest key returning starters for them are going to be their wide receivers, particularly Tutu Atwell, who's the big play threat. He's coming off a 1,000-yard season. Reminds me a lot of Hollywood Brown when you look at that speed and a playmaking ability. They're getting him back this year. So that's the big play threat that we're looking at. And also Dez Fitzpatrick is their other key wide receiver. He's the more of a possession target. He's moving the sticks. Didn't have the yard numbers that Atwell had, but he's the guy that runs good routes and has strong hands. So he's going to be the guy when things break down that you're looking for to just kind of get the ball out and move the chains and keep the drive going. Look at the other guys coming back. It's going to be Javion Hawkins is the other key guy on offense. Running back, he had a great year last year as a redshirt freshman, second team all ACC honors, rushed for over 1,500 yards. So look for him to potentially, have a repeat performance or improve upon that in 2020. And obviously still on the offensive side of the ball, we're looking at Mikhail Cunningham at quarterback. He showed last year that he's more than just an athlete. Had over 2,000 yards throwing, was really efficient with the football when he did throw it. They didn't throw the ball a ton. Obviously, he was running a lot, and they had a good little run and shoot there with him and Hawkins. But when he did throw the ball, he was throwing it down the field and making some plays. So those are the big guys on offense. If they look to return, they're going to be solid on that side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, the big one that we want to focus on that was a playmaker last year is going to be C.J. Avery, weak side linebacker for them. He had 93 tackles, 3 sacks, and 6 pass breakups. So he was another guy that when we talk about guys all over the field making plays in different ways, he's somebody to keep an eye on for 2020.
Gotcha. For Cunningham, he's my first thought when you mention these guys, and I think about who they lost. Once again, yep, he showed he's more than just a runner. He could throw the ball, but again, you got Mekhi Becton on the left side. Dude, the size of Mekhi is unbelievable. And yes, he was not a great polished, pass pro set, but dude, he got his hands on you. Nobody was going to touch the quarterback. I'm more interested to see how those two losses affect Hawkins because, again, your bookends, you think of an all-purpose back like him, smaller, shiftier guy, probably getting around, which essentially means you got to have some good tackle play so essentially he can get to those edges. I want to see if he can repeat or if he has a regression this year. Now, Brian, clearly Mekhi Becton's gone. Who has the unbelievable, tough job of filling those giant shoes?
So the guy looking to step in to Becton's role is going to be Adonis Boone, and we've actually saw him a little bit last year when Becton got nicked against NC State. He stepped in, played pretty well in Becton's absence. I know Becton was on the sideline coaching him up there, but it looks like he stepped in pretty well in that small sample size. So it'll be interesting to see if he's able to do it for a full season, having that role as a full-time starter at left tackle.
All right. Well, who else, Brian? Who else do you feel like for them to potentially take that step, compete with Clemson, who's got to have a good season? Both sides.
Both sides. So the big one on defense is going to be Danya Kennard. He's the defensive tackle. He was actually a walk-on.
Oh, wow.
Walk-on and earned a scholarship in 2019 and had starting role in a few games last year and was a rotational player for the rest of the season. So he's looking to step into a defensive tackle role, potentially as a starter this year, to really elevate them on the defensive side of the ball. And actually, going on that same vein, we're looking at another guy that might step in and be a big playmaker this year is another guy that was a walk-on that earned a scholarship in 2019, and that's Marshawn Ford, the tight end. This kid actually led the ACC in touchdowns by a tight end last year.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so he's looking to potentially improve on that in terms of getting his yardage numbers up, but he was a big-time red zone threat in the ACC last year.
Very nice. Those two guys definitely, you love to hear that. You love to hear also that's probably something Scott Satterfield's brought down there to that culture, giving walk-on scholarships and then seeing them perform. But the Boone thing, that's going to be tough, man. Because, again, you played offensive line, Brian. When you lose somebody like a Mekhi Becton and you're an offensive line coach, what does it make your head? First of all, when you have someone like him, is it just one of those like automatic, like, don't have to worry about that side of the night versus?
Yeah, that's the thing. I think when we're looking at the problems that it creates losing both bookends, it's not like in some situations where you lose your number one tackle and you just kind of swap over and you do a next man up. But when you lose your two best tackles, that's a lot to fill in there because you're bringing in guys at both positions that haven't seen a ton of snaps, and I think that could be problematic for them. They are aided by having a quarterback that is athletic, so some of that edge pressure may not be as much of a problem, but it's still going to be a struggle for them, I think, at least early on. Like you said, I wish we had them maybe in the first month of the season instead of a little bit further down the road.
Absolutely. All right, Brian, this is the question you posed, and it's going to be our fan engagement question this week. Which ACC road opponent makes you the most nervous?
Well, I'm going Louisville just because of somewhat of the unknown factor. We don't play them very often. We're still learning what they're doing as an offense, with a new head coach and with some of these new players they have coming in. So it's still going to be a hard thing to scout and a hard thing to prepare for from that angle, on top of the fact that they're really talented on offense, especially running the football and running with the quarterback, which has kind of been our bugaboo. So they scare me the most. I think we can definitely score points against them. That doesn't concern me. But in the shootout, it's going to be an interesting outcome. So what about you, buddy?
All right. I'm not going to go Louisville. I almost went that way, but that is on Halloween day. So that's one of those things. The crowd's probably going to be pumped. They have a good crowd anyway, so there's going to be energy in the stadium, so it's not going to be hard to get up for. The flip side of wishing we got them early because they have to find their offensive line to gel, well, by that time, by Halloween, they're going to have 7 to 8 games on tape. So we're going to know what they're doing offensively. So easier to prepare for. But I'm going to go flip it 6 days after that. Pitt on a Friday night. You want to talk about probably a place that will have 0 to no energy. It will probably be very mundane. Nardizzi screaming his head off because he didn't get the first call when his team clearly screwed it up. That game scares me because they're not as talented as us. And you want to just go up there and squash them. Now, here's my hope. This is my hope for that early November game. You want to hear it?
Let's have it.
We haven't lost. Everybody's hyped because we just beat Louisville at home on Halloween, and everybody just starts scooping up tickets to Hine, and that becomes Lane Stadium, Pittsburgh style. And it's 40,000 Hokie fans sitting there screaming, and the energy comes, and it hopefully helps the kids out. So, folks, that is going to wrap this episode of the Boundary Corner podcast up. My name is Curtis Wilson.
I'm Brian Siegler.
Follow us on Twitter, Facebook. Subscribe for podcasts on your favorite sources, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We always let our friend Jason Long play us out. Catch him on Spotify and Apple Music. We thank you for listening. And as always, let's go.
Hokies.
Well, I almost gave up drinking. I cut back to 3 a day. I even started exercising. 'Cause middle age never shade. And I quit smoking Marlboro Red. I ain't a salad now and then. But then last week she up and left me.